This book has 50 classroom assessment techniques, okay? And we've talked about, what, 3 here to this particular point in time. Minute papers. Sir? You're going to have to tell me when you want this cut off. Probably do so by foot vote. Everybody leaves.
We've got at least another 10
Okay. And that's a U here. Minute papers are simply more than you again give the class a half sheet of paper, distribute it at the end of the class period and say in one sentence or in a minute, tell me about this particular topic. Okay. And that's a technique to be able to identify what they picked up on that particular day, or you can go back to the previous class period and ask them to recall. What you're going to find is if you go back to the previous class period, the first experience will be an embarrassment for all parties concerned. Okay. After that, the good students are going to start picking up on that, and they'll drag the others along.
So then we create those minute papers, and, how do you use?
Good assessment should not be graded.
Good assessment should be.
They should be totally anonymous. Okay.
Well, graded, yeah, anonymously.
Right. So there are people who have some good skills in Blackboard that will be able to use that, and they'll know when the student has responded, just as they would on a Blackboard discussion group. But the information isn't graded. Okay. So there are all kinds of techniques that you can use there. RSQC2, this is one that you can use any or all, yes ma'am?
I was just gonna say, I think, Mark, at the end point, you read it over, and if you realize that nobody understood what a corpus luteum was, the next 5 minutes of the next class, you would say, okay, we're gonna go back, and we're gonna, looks like nobody got this, so, you know what I'm saying?
Oh. Or they might know a CL, but they might not know the factors involved with the formation or maintenance of the CL.
So you can use that then, so then when you go back to those 4 questions, what did I do? I did a minute paper. What did you learn? That wasn't a good way to present it. I presented, then what did I do differently? I presented it in a different way.
Thanks.
Sorry, jumping.
No. The more voices that provide information, the better. Okay, RSQC2 is one that you can use any one or a combination of all of those techniques. So we're asking students to recall. That's lower levels of critical thinking. Summarize. Now we're asking them to pull things together. Question. Okay. What question could you pose based on what we've talked about to this point in time? Comment and connect. Okay. And then this one leads to connect leads to something that's just horrendous in terms of trying to work with, but we'll talk about it briefly. Concept maps. Okay. So let's use Kim's example of the CL. Okay. And she might then put a corpus luteum as the central point here, and then have them draw a web map of the factors that are involved in the interactions in a CL. So this might have an effect outward. Something else will have an effect inward. How are these things related? And this is what the chemists used to talk about when they spoke of trying to have their students think like a chemist. Okay. So they want to develop the thought patterns that would have their students think in the analytic ways that chemists would. This one takes time. Something that also takes time and actually originated in equine studies was videotaping. Okay, and equitation was an example here as I'm getting excited and dropping things, pardon me. Because instructors were saying, you don't sit in the seat right. You're holding your hands wrong. And the student says, no, I'm not, I'm perfect. And the instructor says, I can show you, but you can't, you didn't. So,
Hard for that one to be anonymous.
yes it is. You know, oh, and while we're here, graduate seminars drive you up the wall, you know, because what are you expecting the students to demonstrate in your graduate seminar? Okay. And they'll spend pages on this, okay? And all they're doing is having an audience participation survey where everyone scratches each other's back and they say, great job, you're doing good, keep up the good work, you know. And there are no really supportive critical comments to help the person improve their presentation skills, despite my throwing a pen around. Okay. Again, look in the book, do some searches with Google on classroom assessment techniques. Find things that make sense to you. Okay, so I'm not trying to develop an exhaustive list. That would be counterproductive. It would be a waste of your time. Okay. Carolyn does a super good job with 225. It's scary. Okay. Susan Ray Diggs in interior design does something totally different. Okay. And their assessment is based around their sophomore portfolio and their senior portfolio. That's integral to their particular program. Wouldn't work here. Okay. But it flies for them because that's what they have to do for their professional accreditation. Use things that make sense to you, use things that work for you, and work for your students.
I have a quick question. Who has their professional animal scientist, PAS? Is there any way we could get, could that be something, like students take that test when they graduate? You know, because that would be.
Personally, I think that would be a bad idea.
Okay.
In part
Why?
because, well, in part because the exam was written by several retired people about 20 years ago.
Oh, it's the same one? The same
And,
Okay.
And I know for sure some of those retired people didn't know the right answers to some of the questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
It's a good question. In engineering, that works because so many of theirs take the fundamentals of engineering exam, the FA. Again, if you only get a pass rate, it tells you nothing. Okay, but if you get a breakdown by area, okay, and engineering economics is one of their weaknesses right now. It tells you what course needs to be enhanced. Please don't run over to Gary Smith and tell him that Bob Harrold said that yada 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 is bad. Yeah. But a couple of departments have identified that with their majors that a particular course is an issue.